Please welcome Florida House Speaker Paul Renner. Thank you so much for joining us.
Craig, great to be with you.
Let's start with the home insurance crisis, because as premiums continue to soar, what else could you do at this point that you have not already tried?
Well, as you know, and maybe many of your listeners already know, we came into special session literally days after the election when I first became speaker and had an additional series of robust reforms following prior reforms. But this is like turning, a major ocean liner. It doesn't remedy itself overnight. And so we obviously need to have no worse than an average hurricane season this year. But if that happens, I was reading some insurance materials recently. Some of the reinsurers are coming into Florida now in a significant way, which was not the case just a year ago before that special session. So all the things that have to happen and kind of happen before those rates start flattening and coming down are happening, but it will be probably into next year with a normal hurricane season before we can see any adjustment in rates.
A big part of the reforms the past couple of years have included an expansion of state-backed reinsurance funds to the insurance industry. And that's a form of subsidizing the private market and something Republican leadership doesn't generally embrace. What makes this different, and does committing so much state money to the private industry make you feel uncomfortable as conservative?
Absolutely does. It's not what we wanted. Literally, that was a situation, Craig, where had we not done that, there might not be, or at least we anticipated there might not be coverage. You might call around and Citizens would be your only option, and we'd all have Citizens not as a last resort, but as a first resort. I'm happy to say that does not appear to be panning out. And so I'm confident that this upcoming year, we're going to be able to pull that subsidy back, which is what we should do. And really, it was a gun to our head in terms of making sure that people had coverage this year. But again, because of our major reforms, the market's healing faster, and I'm pretty confident that we'll be pulling that back, and I look forward to doing so.
What drove your interest in reforming many of the state's economic development programs in House Bill 5, specifically in scrapping Enterprise Florida and in moving Visit Florida under what we now will call the Department of Commerce?
Yeah. And Craig, you've been a champion on this issue for all the right reasons. And something that I worked on literally like 6 years ago, I think now, to try to eliminate Enterprise Florida, which is or was the state entity that manages corporate welfare. So taxpayer money going to groups like Amazon to bring an Amazon warehouse into Florida, which they're going to do anyway, because we're the 15th or 14th, depending on who you ask, largest economy in the world if we were a country, and obviously the third largest state. And so this is not where taxpayer money should be going. We should not ask hardworking men and women to be forced to pay taxes, to send it over to wealthy corporations to come in and compete against corporations already here and maybe have been here for 20 or 30 years in the state of Florida. Plus, what we saw is that, the ribbon cutting might promise 500 or 1,000 jobs, and you fast forward 3 or 4 years later and no jobs, or very few jobs, 3 or 4 jobs. And so this is just a terrible, terrible idea that, government creep and has happened where people want everything from government. Those monies should be going to things like education, infrastructure, things that we all agree on are fundamental roles of government. So this year, I'm proud to say we eliminated Enterprise Florida. We collapsed, I think, about 2/3 of the jobs, sent some limited functions over to what was DEO and now is the Department of Commerce. But we also, in the course of that, eliminated quite a number of incentive programs that had not been funded by our legislature for many years because we don't believe in it. But next year, I think we'll try to attack some of the remaining incentives, like film incentives, that still are on the books that I think need to come off. So we're not done yet. But this year was a big win for taxpayers and a big reorientation of where taxpayer money should be going, which is the record investment we made in infrastructure, both in transportation and land conservation, those tax cuts we mentioned, making sure we're taking care of doctors and parents that are taking care of children by increasing reimbursement rates. We can't do those things if we're giving away taxpayer money to wealthy corporations. And so I'm proud to say we're putting an end to that.
House Speaker Paul Renner, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Craig. Great to be with you.